He woke to the sun, unaware it was the last morning he owned his life. Shadows gathered. Fate waited. His hands knew only work, not chains. He belonged to the village that knew his name, but the world beyond was stirring, and belonging wouldn't save him. An elder whispered of strangers, of soldiers approaching. He tried to ignore it, but warnings never come alone. Life continued as usual, unaware of the storm. Footsteps of fate were louder than voices. Across the horizon, banners shimmered in the heat. An empire that seemed distant was closer than anyone imagined. Darkness fell with a heavy stillness. Shadows thickened and fear crept behind every corner. The door crashed inward. Dust and torchlight filled the room. Morning arrived with violence, not mercy. Boots hit the ground before faces appeared. Iron spoke first, and the world changed in a heartbeat. Hands torn apart, families divided. Control began with a single motion, and resistance was already too late. Ropes bit into his skin. Every pull reminded him. Freedom was gone. They stopped asking who he was. A name vanished, leaving only a shadow of himself under their control. Humans became numbers. His face faded into the line, identity reduced to a mark on a list. Chains clinked with every step, distance punished, and the road stretched longer than hope.
Hold the line!
Commands
Push
came
them
in foreign
back.
sounds that
Now,
meant pain.
move!
Each word reminded him speech could betray him. A ladle passed briefly. Mercy existed only in function, not kindness. Each sip was a fleeting relief. Not everyone finished the march. Bodies fell, dust settled, and life moved on. Sleep came chained, firelight flickering on iron rings. Even rest was measured, controlled, stolen. Value was assigned by touch. Hands pressed against him, judging, stripping him of dignity. Oil rubbed into his shoulders. His body was prepared like goods. Humanity irrelevant.
Away with him!
He was placed on
He has
wood,
broken the
worn
law and
by
brought
trade.
shame upon us!
The height
He
did
is
not elevate
worthy!
him. It displayed him. Voices moved around him, but none moved toward him. Decisions were made without his presence. A pouch shifted hands. The sound of coins replaced the sound of his name. A shadow fell across him. The face attached to it carried authority, not recognition. They gave him a name he had never heard. With a single word, his past was pushed aside. Wagons rolled on, carrying silence heavier than chains. The land they knew faded behind them. Fields rolled past the bars. Life outside the cart remained untouched. Stone walls rose higher than memory. Whatever waited inside was larger than refusal. The gate closed behind him. Entry did not require permission. The path behind him narrowed into distance. Forward was the only direction left. They sat. Silence measured them. Eyes traced what others could own. The platform rose. Each body was exposed. Judgment moved beneath. A hand guided his shoulder. He faced what was expected, not what he chose. His jaw was lifted, his face turned without consent. The inspection passed without question or answer. Hands traced muscle and bone. Every motion reduced him to function. A nod, slight and final. Nothing else marked the change. Step by step, he moved forward, each pace no longer his own. Control shifted quietly, without pause or warning. Walls pressed around him. Minutes dragged with weight. Nothing changed. Markers divided them into groups. Lines and numbers replaced their names, reducing lives to labels. A token passed from hand to hand. His place was decided without a word. He followed where he was sent. Bodies shuffled along narrow paths. Each step echoed in silence. lives treated as nothing more than
I
cargo.
expect obedience and
Fingers
diligence from all of
pointed.
you.
Tools were
No one
claimed.
stops until I
He
give
learned
the
the
word.
role he was to play, each task taking more of himself. The work began. Hands, backs, lungs pushed before thought could resist. Eyes followed him closely. Every tilt of his head, every measured breath was watched and counted. Muscles burned. Sweat stung. Still, he moved as required.
You think this is
A
a
finger
joke?
pointed and his
You
body
ruined everything
froze.
I worked for.
Pain
Get out of
taught
my
him
sight
lessons
before I
words
end
never
you.
could. He bent, shifted, and endured. Each small movement was measured, just enough to keep him alive. Hands slipped quietly to soothe, bandage, hide. No one applauded.
They are close behind
Soft
us.
We have to keep
voices
moving.
moved between them. A message, a warning, a memory. He touched what remained. Names, faces, moments folded into silence. Chins were lifted, eyes examined. They were assessed the way worn tools are tested. His body weakened, but the field did not wait. Illness did not excuse absence. When someone fell, hands carried the weight away. The line closed without pause. An empty space lasted only a moment. Another body stepped forward. Resistance did not begin loudly. It began with a pause, a brief hesitation where obedience was expected.
Are you
They
certain
learned
this
to
is
speak
secure?
in glances and
they find
pauses,
out,
in
Relax.
movements too small to
No one is
punish.
watching.
Meaning
We check the
passed
count
quietly
ourselves.
between them. But someone always noticed. Silence was never fully private, and even the smallest shift could be seen. Fear moved faster than hope. A tightened grip said enough. An example was made before them all. The message needed no explanation. Its meaning settled heavily in the air. Later, in darkness, they shared what little they could. Pain was divided quietly. They formed bonds without permission. Even here, closeness survived. Life arrived in captivity. A newborn's cry pierced a world already claimed. The newborn was recorded. Ink marked a future not yet lived, a life already measured before it began. Small hands were guided early. Work began before memory settled. Families were not permanent. Distance was enforced, breaking bonds before they were understood. They mourned without spectacle. The earth received another name, and sorrow settled quietly among them. Names were spoken softly, in places where no ledger could erase them, kept alive in memory alone. Music carried
We
what
need more
speech could
straw
not.
before the wagon comes.
A rhythm
It's slow
held what
going, the
words
dust
might
is thick
risk,
today.
speaking for those who could not. Belief survived in fragments. A gesture, a circle, a quiet act. Survival was taught carefully. Knowledge moved in whispers, carried from one to another with caution and care.
I told
Whispers
you
of
this was a bad
change
idea.
traveled
He knows
carefully,
we're here.
passing from
Just
mouth
keep
to
quiet
ear,
and follow
never
me.
loud, always measured. Every gathering drew attention. Observation was constant. Fear divided them, spreading quietly through the group. Trust thinned under constant pressure, fragile and fleeting. Before dawn, doors opened abruptly. Night offered no protection. Hope was dragged into open light. Resistance meant consequence, swift and unmistakable. Questions blurred into threat. Silence required endurance, each pause carrying its own risk.
Hold the line.
Punishment was displayed
Show
in
no
full
fear.
view. The lesson
Today,
was
We
collective,
prove our
meant
worth
for
in the
every
eyes of the
watching
gods.
eye. Friends sat apart, distance growing between them. Suspicion settled where comfort once lived. Survival demanded choices no one wished to make. Conscience wrestled quietly with necessity. They continued despite it all. To stop, even briefly, meant vanishing from sight and memory. Time marked their bodies slowly and deeply, carving lines that even iron could not leave.
Long
became
ago,
living records.
before the darkness came,
Memory passed
the
from
first
voice to
men
voice,
gathered here,
carried carefully
just as
so
we do
nothing would be
now.
lost. Nothing material endured. Only memory could be given, handed down like something sacred. Standing together became its own testimony. Presence alone spoke what words sometimes could not. Some lives ended without release. Absence lingered in quiet spaces, felt more than seen. The land kept its impressions long after footsteps faded, holding traces no one could fully erase. Small tokens remained behind. Wood and worn fabric remembered where paper could not, holding quiet traces. Generations later, hands traced names once nearly erased, restoring them through touch and voice. The past did not disappear. It settled into the present, shaping it in quiet ways.
We
Stories
must
became
stand
proof.
together, or the
Speaking
coming
became
winter will
preservation,
surely claim us all.
each telling an act of
The
protection.
fire burns.
Lessons moved forward, planted carefully like seeds meant to outlive the sower, tended by those who came after. Scars carried history where books could not, etched into living memory and carried in silence. They walked forward, carrying what came before them, step by deliberate step toward an uncertain horizon. Even in silence, their story remained, steady and unforgotten.